we welcome you to the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center for our Conversations and Coffee on this fifth day of this beautiful month of October. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program. Where else would we want to be on this beautiful day but in this beloved city of Columbus? And with our guest artist, Jonathon Van Buren. Jonathon is a multifaceted artist who finds joy in exploring color and texture through glass art, ceramic sculpture, and copper enamel. He started his artistic journey in oil and watercolor paintings as a teenager, then later developed a love for film and digital photography while in college. But then life, family, job, circumstances intervened, leading to a 10-year hiatus from all things art. Upon moving back to Columbus during the pandemic, as things gradually reopened, Jonathon found himself at the Cultural Arts Center. Well, are we blessed? For the first time, you took copper enameling class. And from there, his love of art was reinvigorated through various classes, further learning how to create stained glass, fused glass, and ceramic art pieces. In copper enameling, he focuses on wearable art in the form of earrings and pendants. No two pieces are alike. He also employs his painting skills to create, and wait till you see, that beautiful. The occasional larger decorative landscape using glass frit and powder on copper. Jonathon loves combining bold colors in his stained and fused glass art, such as sign language hands, rainbow mosaics, flowers, and colorful Ohio-shaped stained glass works. His sun catchers light up windows around Columbus. In ceramics, Jonathon enjoys the bringing the colors together and textures of nature into his sculptures. He creates an assortment of both functional and whimsical pieces, including birdhouses, vases, hanging air plant jellyfish that combine glass and clay with live plants. Jonathon, we so look forward to your sharing with us your creative expression of art. Beautiful. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I did not write all of that, or maybe a little bit of it. It's very, very kind words. Thank you.
And you want to introduce to us your...
I'm joined by my wife and my mother here to support me in this presentation. I don't present often, but thank you. I guess I'll start it off by presenting my paintings and my photography, because that's kind of how I got into art. So my earlier years, I did landscape photography and watercolor paintings, and also oil paintings, very impressionist, like the texture. And then also my photography, I lived in the South, so it's very, this is kudzu covered house. It's an invasive species, but it can be very beautiful when it's draped over a house or in a glowing field. I also, more landscape photography. I'm just gonna kind of skip through my landscape photography because it's very. This is Tallulah Gorge in Georgia. It's a fall, very apt, reminiscent of the seasons changing right now. Kind of photoshopped landscape, close-up macro photography I was into as well. Butterflies, I think I probably took that at the Franklin Park Conservatory, which probably everybody here has probably taken a photo of the blooms and butterflies at the conservatory. This is a infrared, like false infrared photography, where I overlaid a color photograph over an infrared photograph of the topiary garden in Columbus here. A lot of my landscapes are around the parks of Columbus. This one I was just driving through Kentucky, and the light was perfect, so I just pulled off and found this field with the lights casting over the field and the farm. That's also infrared photography. So the sky is very black and the foliage is very illuminated. There's the Lincoln Levesque Tower, more infrared photography. I was on Scioto Mile somewhere, the pathway that right along the river.
What you do with photography is so much like a painting.
Yeah.
What are you doing intentionally to have that happen?
Just using the same rules of S curves and rules of three, and just breaking up the sky and the land, and then with the Photoshop, you can kind of give it a little bit of a ethereal look through the infrared photography.
That's what I see, that has it
Yeah,
look like a painting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was multiple photos stitched together. So it's probably like 6 or 7 photographs all stitched together into one. More infrared photography. I think that was in Knoxville. Bamboo forest in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think it's the zoo, if I believe. Here's a casting pond and the Park of Roses. The lake had frozen over, but the surface was melted, so it gave it a mirror-like sheen on the surface. Hocking Hills. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. It's hard to get out of once you get down in there. More Hocking Hills, the Old Man's Cave. Some close-up photography. Some more conceptual photography when I was taking lighting classes and trying to get the warmth and the feel of. And I was into light graffiti when it's big now, but I was doing it way before anybody else was doing it. Really, with you take lights and you draw in the sky, in the air with light, and the prolonged exposure captures the light. This is a Photoshop contest I was entering, where I took a picture and overlaid a lot of texture to make it look really old. Here's a photograph of Willie Phoenix. The stars have been superimposed, obviously. It wasn't actually, but it was more of a aura kind of photograph, where he's a very cool guy. This is a photograph converted into a painting in Photoshop using Coral Painter, where you take the photo and you just paint over it to give it that. So it's the brush strokes. Fall pumpkins. I thought this was a pretty interesting photo. Some more close-up photography. This is when I was doing macro photography, trying to get the very detailed, getting as much detail as you can in a close-up photograph.
Nancy, why don't you
This one was a government building down in Georgia. It was a government building down in Georgia. It was just really cool, the way the brutalist building. I really love brutalist architecture.
You want to tell us what you were commenting on?
Well, I didn't know if it was color photography or black and white.
It's black and white. I think This was more of a golden wood color, but then the rest of it I think was all white. But so,
Just the shadows and light.
yeah, just a more texture and shadow and line, and more of that. It's just a landscape photograph I really liked. Just driving in the country, and you don't know what you're going to find. All right, now I'm going to move on to the copper enamel, since that's what kind of brought me here to Columbus. Or when I started art in Columbus, I was here at the Cultural Arts Center. I started doing. Talk into the mic.
We
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. I learned from Sharon Putter downstairs here in the basement at the Cultural Arts Center. It's where you take glass powder and sometimes frit, and you fuse it onto copper at about 1500 degrees in a kiln. And for this piece, I textured the copper first before I put a layer of clear copper and color over the top of it. And in my more recent work, there's a lot of Ohios and the shape of Ohio.
Texture the copper.
Yes, with a hammer. So
Okay.
just beat on it with a hammer to get the texture. Some of them just the curve of the hammer, and some of them I'll use like a flower or something, like a shape of a flower, and hammer it into the copper. And then you
Those
fire
are
it clear.
gorgeous.
Thank you. And then you fire it clear, and then you add the color on top of that. So it's multi-step process. You're going in and out. You're cleaning up the edges of all the copper in between steps and then finally ending up with a pretty cool, shiny result. This one is, the red is more of a fire scale coming through, where the fire scale is when you put the copper in bare into the kiln, it gets that red glow of copper. So, and then when you go over it, it turns different colors and creates interesting effects.
Now did you learn this from Sharon, or did you know
Some of it I
and
learned, and some of it was just
celebrate it with her?
experimenting and
Uh-huh.
breaking the rules of doing what you're not supposed to do and putting stuff in, and then just playing around with it and ending up with cool results like these ones. This one is, like I said, you stamp. It was the flower stamp, so it's just a pendant. It's kind of like the pendant that I have on here, but it's blown up to to where everybody can see it. So you stamp in, fire it clear, then add like the color dots on top of the center of the flowers to make. It's a really cool technique. Some more similar to the leaves before, just the fire scale and the color. And this one is a separation enamel, so it's multiple layers in and out of the kiln, and then finally you add a compound on top of them, and it separates the dots out.
That's right there.
Yeah, here, do you want to? You can pass it around and look at it up close if you want. There you go. I brought these for people to pass around and take a look at. This one's more of the same. You know. Hammered it, textured it, colored it. All right, so this one has the millefleurie, I can never say it right, the glass beads, the thousands of tiny little flowers. So you take the flowers and set it on there, and they melt, embeds it into the glass. It's just a shot of a bunch of different pieces I had done in 1 week. Just different shapes, different textures. I really like the flower texture. I use that one a lot. This one's cool. This one's layered clear and then an opaque powder over it. And it kind of separates itself and just kind of makes these little starburst looking galaxy. There's a lot of just experimenting with this and just seeing what works and what doesn't work.
The shape seems classical.
Yeah.
It looks like the United States of
yeah,
America.
Yeah. Ohio kind of looks like
And
America.
Ohio, yes.
Ohio against the world, you know.
So you're doing that intentionally. Did you say that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
just see.
buy the shapes already cut out to look like Ohio.
Ah,
so
I see. Yeah.
it's really hard to make two shapes, cutting them out to make them look identical. It's a lot of work and not takes a lot of time. So here's another
Our
one.
senators would enjoy that. You ought to approach them.
I think everybody in Ohio loves Ohio, so otherwise you wouldn't be here. This is more layering. This has probably been into the kiln like 4 or 5 times. Different colors of powder layered over. This one's more hammer texture, but then like a blue, opalescent blue color over the fire scale to kind of, it shimmers and kind of gives it that look.
Is there any way to fix mistakes when you're making those?
A hammer to break off the glass and then redo it or cover it up. But you kind of, after you've done it for a while, you kind of just know what's going to happen. It's just about trial and error. But yeah, it's hard to fix that. If something goes wrong, you kind of have to just hit it with a hammer and break off the glass and kind of start over.
You just accept it.
Yeah, or you just accept it, or you could just take an opaque powder and just go over the top of it and put some flowers on it. You can do anything. Here's a cool, I think this one's hanging up over here. It's more texture. This one has the Millefiori embedded in the surface, melted on. More of the flowers, sort of a Day of the Dead inspired sugar skulls. I really like these ones. The fire scale and the multiple layers going on. This one, sort of like a lava lamp inspired earrings. The colors and the way they glow and shimmer. Because when you have the clear glasses, you're reflecting off the copper and it's coming back. So it's very shiny. Same with these ones, just a mixture of opaque frit or opaque powder and clear frit to kind of get those water patterns.
About the nature of frit.
Frit is just glass chunks, like little. Instead, you have the powder, and then you have little chunks of the glass. So this here around it would be the powder, and then the chunks separating it. So just kind of. This one's stenciled, where I had a blue earring, and then just stenciled red opaque glass over the top of it. Here's the landscape that I have here. It's very impressionist painting, drawing on my background and painting. But with this, you don't really have time to work on it like a painting. You have to kind of do it all in one or two goes. You build up everything on the surface and hope for the best when you fire it, because you don't really get a second chance. Like with painting, you can go back and fix things. So it's kind of like painting on hard mode. Like,
What do you think is the influence that you have through color? You mentioned, when you were younger, you just were aware of color.
Just really liked color. Like Van Gogh paintings, like really had a big impact on me. Like growing up, I just really loved the Impressionist movement and all their colors and just vibrant. That's probably why I have lots of like the poppy field kind of inspiration. Here's one kind of zooming in. So this is more of the frit. It's just each one of these is a pellet of glass melted into the surface. So you kind of have just one go at this. It's not here's a smaller one. I have this one, the after photo, and then I have the before, because I actually took a picture of this one. So it's kind of just a clear background, and then you layer all the frit on the surface, and you kind of have one go and hope for the best and cross your fingers that it's going to turn out the way you want it. And it's pretty cool. So it's faster than painting, but it's a lot harder than painting. More Ohio. Some more shiny earrings, just layering different colors and surrounding the powder and the frit. I use a lot of the powder and frit and different color combinations. More of the stamped. Here's a pendant that I made. I think I have a video here of it being, or maybe not. I thought I had a video of it being made, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I like to use just random beads that I find to make the necklaces, the pendants go on. This was sort of a Crayola inspired series of earrings I did. Just going for the rainbow.
So you sell these at different...
Yeah, different. That was at like the Columbus Arts Festival, different markets around town. I've got the Clintonville Arts Guild holiday show coming up on the 17th, 18th, and 19th. If anybody wants to check out some art.
And where will that be?
At the North High Street at the Whetstone Recreation Center in Clintonville. Yeah, I have a slide I'll probably get to at some point. There's just a close-up of the Crayola-inspired. It's more of the separation enamel where you layer like clear and then a white and then the colors, and then you separate to try to get down to the bottom again, which that's a long process. Some more, I think those are the ones I passed around already. Some Ohios. These ones are really cool. Just more of the frit, just rainbow pattern. This is a piece that I entered into the student exhibition that they had here for the Cultural Arts Center students. It was a mixture of copper enamel, and then I made a piece of driftwood out of ceramics. I really like. You'll see some more of my ceramic pieces in a second here. Some more Mule Fury, Rainbow Ohios, little fingers for scale, little moon earrings. I think that's back to the beginning of this one. Move on to ceramics, which is like a lot of my ceramics are sort of nature inspired, color and texture, like with the crackle texture of my pieces over here. So I like this one I just really liked the raw clay on it, so I left it bare on the outside and didn't glaze the outside, just the inside with that blue-green combo.
Are you doing that at different places?
That I do right next to my house in the Short North at the Thompson Recreation Center.
Oh.
I learned from Delynn Stinziano of the Stinziano family. She's a really good ceramicist, but she's really good at wheel throwing, and I'm more of a hand builder, so I really like hand built ceramics where you don't use the wheel, you just kind of build it up. And
Which of your mediums is your favorite to do?
right now I really like ceramics. Like, I feel like if you can think of it, you can kind of do it. You just, whatever you want, you just make it. There's a little clip of the. I just really like the glazes. You can make them sort of look mossy, and that's a big theme throughout mine. It's just, I had this idea for sort of a mod shape, and then went from there, and then added the texture later, which was, it's kind of a texture that I just would always doodle. You know, if you just mindlessly doodling, like this is kind of one of those patterns that I just mindlessly doodle, like these kind of eye shapes. And I just sort of started incorporating it into my ceramics.
That's one beautiful doodle.
It works with
Wow.
these for sure. It's not as impressive as a doodle on a paper, but when you add the colorful glaze, I think this screen is helping the saturation. So it's a little bit more colorful here than it is in person, but it's still pretty cool. And I like the way that the glazes interact and get sort of an ancient look to some of these. Here's my attempt at modeling it. It's sort of a vase. Yeah.
It's like a bird.
Yeah, I've gotten that sort of like a Woodstock kind of bird. I think I sort of had a instrument kind of in mind when I was first conceptualizing it, but then it became kind of a bird, and then I added texture that has nothing to do with a bird. But here's a little vase, little picture that I made. This one, whereas the other ones I used more of a carving, this one I applied circles to it before I carved it, so it's sort of extra layers of dimension. And again, with the glazes, adding that sort of ancient look to it. This one, I wanted to make a cylinder, and I was just trying to make a really good cylinder, but then I carved in some circles into it and just overlapped them. And then this one sat on the shelf for a long time because I couldn't decide, do I want to overlap colors, or, you could do anything. That's the hardest part of ceramics, is deciding which glaze, because you can't do over with glazes. You're stuck with it. So here's one of my mugs that I do. I do a lot of wood texture too. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do, is wood texture. And here's a mug, and then moving on to my birdhouses. So it's one of my favorite things to do, is make birdhouses out of clay and incorporate the wood grain texture and the colorful glazes. To make it look sort of mossy, like you found it out in the woods or something. Here's one that was my first attempt at more of a functional birdhouse with a lid versus just one that is more decorative, but it's still a shrank, so it's probably wouldn't be the happies.
Hummingbirds in there?
People ask me that because I looked it up, but hummingbirds don't use birdhouses. They only make their own nests. So I was like, you can't make a hummingbird birdhouse. So.
What about your glazes?
I use when I'm doing the birdhouses and wood texture, I use a lot of ancient jasper, Amico, Potter's Choice glazes that mix and sort of give you that mossy look. So if you ever wanted to try out ancient jasper with oatmeal over it, believe it or not, oatmeal, you wouldn't think you would get the blue colors out of a glaze called oatmeal, but there it is. Believe it or not, that's oatmeal over a green color called ancient jasper. So don't ask me how it works, but
How many coats?
2 coats of each, I think. Yeah. There it is again on my couch. It's sort of at home there, but precariously balanced. Probably wouldn't want to keep it there for long. This one I was going for like a root, that the root structure, you pull it out of the ground, and a bulbous tree root, and more of that ancient jasper glaze to mimic sort of a mossy look to it. This one, interesting. Similar to my other, I like to do air plant holders, kind of like hanging air plant holders, which are living, like that one over there, like air plants that kind of hang out.
Do you just miss those?
You soak them in water like once a week. You put them in water for like,
Thing, or
yeah, you just, yeah, with this thing, it's water safe, so I just dunk the whole thing in the water. Even the holder. Yeah. It's all protected. It's good. It's ceramic and glass. They should be okay in the water.
And the title of that again is an
air plant.
plant?
Yeah, they're mostly down like the southeast. It's kind of like Spanish moss, but it's like it absorbs all of its moisture through the rain, like through its leaves. It doesn't have roots. You don't plant it. I had a video, I don't know, it just disappeared, but I had a video of this with all the air plants in it hanging out the sides. But I think you can imagine air plants sticking out the side of this. This one was sort of a Art Nouveau inspiration. That's my idea was behind this one. Oh, yeah, here we go. It's very alien-like. It sort of had anybody know who H.R. Geiger is? That kind of reminded me of H.R. Geiger, the one who created all the concept art for Aliens. Like, very kind of inspired this one. More of the Art Nouveau vase that I was working on. Oh, it's all, yeah, pretty much everything I have is all hand-built ceramics. I don't really enjoy the wheel that much. I just like making stuff by hand. This is a challenge just to get the height, because clay likes to droop and fall, and you got to do a lot of reinforcing with roofing paper and newspaper, and you stuff it in there and hope for the best and hope it doesn't all sag and fall.
So Jonathan, here we have the sculpting and then we have ceramics, but they do a lot of building in ceramics. Is there a difference between the two classes?
I don't think so. I don't do it here, but yeah, just as long as hand building is just anything that's not on the wheel, basically. So you can do a slab roller, you can roll it out flat and work from that, or you can do coils and anything hand built, anything that isn't on the wheel is hand built. Here's the initial idea behind this was a memory jug kind of thing. I was gonna incorporate little tchotchkes and things from my mother and glue them on the side, but I never really got around to it. But it was too pretty to really glue a bunch of junk on the outside of this. But someday I probably will go back and do that. Just another interesting shaped, I don't know, funky shaped vase. I don't know how to describe it. Another mug with the sort of doodle texture on the outside. You can pretty much put it on anything. And then, yeah, the glazes really make it sometimes. And then here's some of the sodium silicate crackle texture. There's a lot of nature in my ceramic work. And this has, I'm going to pass that around. So the outside, you take slip and you cover the clay, and then as you bend it, and it cracks once it's all dried out, and then you end up with a texture like this very mud or bark or elephant skin kind of texture on the ceramics. I think it looks a lot more blue here than it does in person. There's just a picture with the same technique where you cover the outside with slip and then sodium silicate, and then you dry it out with a blow dryer, and then you try your best to reach in and crackle from the inside to get that texture.
And how again do you get that blue?
The blue that's just a one color over a dark clay. It's called brown bear clay. So the glazes look different over different colors, types of clay. So some are buff like a white clay, and then some are like a brown clay. So the glazes look different on the different. That one's not very big. It's probably only 8 inches tall. Because it's hard to make the text. I'll show a slide in a second of me making the slab of the texture. It's hard to build something out of the clay once you've textured it that way. Here's just a big piece on a wall of the same kind of texture. And here's the air plant that I have hanging over there. So here's me making the slab. To the first step of making one of these pieces is to have this.
Smooth, and then you put the stuff on, and then
You put like slip and stuff, and then you put sodium silicate over it, and then hit it with a blow dryer, and it dries the surface, and then you can crack the surface. So one side of it'll still be that wet clay that you can use, but the outside is all dry. So it's hard to build something once you got to this step here. Here's a work in progress. This is kind of what it looks like before it's been fired or anything. This one's just the leather dry, as they call it, clay. Here's a sculptural piece I did, just an octopus. I would like to add some more pieces, maybe some coral or something to go around this piece, have it sitting on top of something.
You've given it such personality.
Thank you. Yeah. Just, yeah. Limitations of how much time you want to spend with the tentacles. You can get as elaborate or as you want, but I like how it turned out, especially with that purple and blue kind of color. Another one of my air plant holders. Just make a little bowl kind of thing and then attach it with a lot of twine to keep the air plant from falling out. There's another hand-built tree-inspired picture that I made.
is that the same glaze tree?
Yeah, a little bit more oatmeal, I think, and it's a lot more blue than the other one. It's pumpkin season, so these are some pumpkins I made the other day. I just haven't had the chance to finish these. I'm gonna move on to glass art now. So this is fused glass. It's kind of like stained glass, but instead of doing all the grinding and foiling and soldering like you would with a piece like this, you take a piece of clear and then you just put them on the clear glass and then you fuse it all in a kiln at like 1400 degrees or so. And if you have the same type of glass, if you use different types of glass, it'll all explode. But if you use the same kind of glass, a 96 coefficient of expansion glass, it'll all just work well together and stay in one piece and not explode. And then this was a stained glass piece I did I designed this initially for a show about hands. The theme of the art show was hands. So I have a lot of stained glass hands that I developed for that. The universal sort of I love you ACL. And there's a lot of Ohios in my stained glass. And the thing with stained glass versus the fused glass is there's a lot of different textured glass with the stained glass that you don't get with the fused glass. It makes for a different kind of look, because this one, you can't really get this in stained glass because the amount of time it would take to foil and solder all these tiny little pieces, it would just take 100 hours to do versus less pieces with the stained glass. You're just trying for more of a structural piece.
Are you doing this in an office? Are you doing this at home? Or?
The fused glass, I take a class at the Thompson Rec Center, but the stained glass, I do at home. You don't need a kiln or anything special. It's
with the encouragement of Shanna right there, huh?
yes.
Who is also an artist. Let's comment on.
Oh, yes. I also do copper enameling, fused glass, stained glass, and ceramics. And I'm the one that encouraged him to take copper enameling and got him into all this art. So he's done well.
And also we were trying to get into the fused glass class, and they wouldn't let us start that until we took the stained glass class. So that's how I started stained glass. Was not really by choice. It was kind of a happy accident that I ended up in stained glass and in fused glass. So this is another mosaic of fused glass. It's and then here's what
when you were telling me about yourself that this is in the windows of Columbus.
Yeah.
Tell me what you mean by that.
I have a business, Art Van Glass, and I travel around to different art shows and different craft fairs, and I'm in the Clintonville Arts Guild, which I think I mentioned already. We have a holiday show on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of November at the Whetstone Rec Center. So so I sell at the Columbus Arts Festival, different markets, Front Street Flea, different markets around Columbus where I just sell my jewelry and my fused glass art. Here's one of my little sun catchers that I've made. It's similar to this, but it's less involved than making a whole landscape mosaic. It's just a simple flower design. Here it is before firing, so it's all, you got to meticulously cut out all these little pieces of glass and arrange it. Similar to just doing a mosaic, but instead of using grout, you just fuse it in the kiln, and then you can hang it in the window.
Making a piece. You had a bowl in there, and the little one back, and then
This one?
yes.
This one.
So I'm assuming that the bowl is already made.
Basically, with this, you start out with a big circle, and then meticulously with a glass cutter, you cut out the tiny pieces, and then take tweezers and just assemble it all on this big circle, and then you fuse it all flat. Kind of flat, but with still some texture, and then you would slump it into a bowl, which is like made out of ceramic in a kiln. And it.
How long does it take time-wise? I know temperature doesn't melt it as much.
It takes like a long time to get it up to heat, and then anneal it down. It takes a long, like, I don't know, 12 hours probably in the kiln. But you don't have to do anything. You just have to turn the kiln on. But the
Have
assembly,
you taught your classes?
No, not yet.
No, just
Someday I
listen.
probably will, but right now I
There's
just.
so much to learn from you.
Thank you. I know a lot about it now that I didn't know a few years ago. So I've learned a lot in a very short amount of time. Here's another Ohio love piece. And this one's a flower similar to that flower hanging over there out of fused glass. So it's kind of like stained glass, but you cut out all the petals and then drape it over a thing to kind of give it the shape of the flower. So it goes in the kiln 2 times.
Do you discover yourself some of this technique on how you're going to bring this about?
Some of them, like I just kind of do whatever I want to do and then see what works. A lot of trial and error with some of my like mosaic stuff. And like right now I'm trying to do a mosaic, but instead of having the clear in between the mosaic, I'm trying to use like a black frit in between to kind of be like a grout. So it's just trial and error, just do it. As long as you use all the same type of glass, you don't really have any problems. It could end up ugly, but that's like the worst thing that can happen is if it just turns out ugly. Here's another little sun catcher. This is mostly what I sell at shows is little sun catchers like this and earrings. And here's a larger piece I did, very Art Deco inspired sun catcher, I guess you could say. The sun. I just was looking at Art Deco pieces, and they always have those kind of angular beams of light coming off of them. So another little sun catcher. Here's another mosaic that I did out of fused glass. I really like. There's a lot of rainbows in my glass work, whereas my ceramic work is still nature, but it's more neutral, kind of earthy tree stuff. But then my glass art is very colorful. It's like the stuff that I want to hang up in my windows, and hopefully other people will want to buy it and hang it up in their windows. And here's a jellyfish, kind of like that one, but this one's fused glass and beads instead of a air plant. And here's one with an air plant. A Hamza hand. I do a lot of hands, so I like this one. I think it's Middle Eastern Jewish symbolism. It's like when it's this way, it's warding off the evil eye, and then when it's upside down, it's welcoming in prosperity. So I like hanging it in the windows. More nature-inspired Monstera leaf. And this piece was sort of inspired by the Great Seal of Ohio. So Ohio-shaped stained glass with the state seal inspired look to it. And here's a close-up look of that flower that's hanging over there with the air plant in it. It's just more of the mosaic, but some pumpkins, more Hamza hand. This one's more of a abstract mosaic of a Hamza hand. And this is another thing you don't get with the fused glass. You don't get as cool of a casting from the sun, like with the colored glass really is really cool when it's cast onto the...
Well, let's hear from Mother here, mother-in-law, who brought you to us. Comments on watching this, seeing this happening.
Well, Jonathan, I didn't know your mom too well, but I know she was a quilter, and I was just wondering, was this kind of inspired by seeing her put things together like that?
Yeah, she encouraged me with art a lot when I was younger. So yeah, she did
was
a
a
lot.
quilter.
Yeah,
huh?
she did a lot of quilting.
Oh,
it's a long, laborious process that I don't think I'll ever undertake because some of those quilts take forever, and you're never happy with it. So I like the glass art. It's a little quicker than I see those pieces at the Ohio State Fair, and they spent like 1,000 hours doing those giant quilts down there. It's pretty impressive.
We have a quilt exhibit going up
I know,
downstairs.
yes.
Did you
Yeah,
notice
everybody
that?
should check that out too.
Transformations is the name.
Yes.
Yeah, well, how wonderful that your mother clearly inspired you with color and
Yeah.
time and texture and
Mhm.
patience.
She's very, very creative and crafty. And when I was a little kid, I was always doing crafts with making knitted things and making those little ornaments out of yarn. And so growing up, I was definitely pushed into art. Yes, it's also homeschooled.
Homeschooled,
So a lot
huh?
of time to do crafts and art.
Anyone want to comment? Isn't
Any
this
questions
amazing?
about
Your friends who
stained glass or?
She's shy to hold
Okay.
on to this.
Here's a little clip of my setup at the Columbus Arts Festival. So if you're wondering how I display all of this stuff at the same time, this is a portion of my stuff. I don't really have room for my ceramics, so it's mostly just my glass. So. Yeah. I was the only stained glass person at the Columbus Arts Festival, which people kept coming up and telling me. It's like, I guess, not as many people doing it. Yeah. Is there anything else that anybody wants to touch on? No, that's something I could
Hear
probably.
that question? Nice and loud, Barb.
She asked if I did my own shirt, but no, somebody else did. So someday I'll probably try it out myself. But it's fun.
Do you think you'll go? You said you're like really into ceramics. Do you think
Yeah, she was asking what direction I'm going to go in my ceramics, which right now I'm just really into this kind of thing with the sodium silicate and making that texture. I'm trying to make bigger pieces with this because it's easy to do like a small piece like the top of that jellyfish, but making something that's bigger it's a lot more complicated and there's a lot more room for error and things collapsing.
color on
This one, I use mason stains on the outside to do the color, but the inside, once it's fired, you just would glaze it like that bowl that I did. I usually use like a brown bear clay, so it's a dark wood kind of clay. Anything else?
Can we come together to see some of your paintings as we come to closure? Is that easy to get on there? Those paintings you started out with.
Oh, you want to look at some more of them?
Yeah, let's gaze at them as
Okay.
we.
Yeah, I
Bring
kind
to
of glanced.
closure all
Actually,
that
I
you've
have
done.
one folder I didn't even get to. If you want to look at some of my recent photography that I've done.
Now, are you painting from your home studio as well?
I don't really do a lot of painting right now. Here's just some more recent photographs I've done of
Mhm.
around Columbus. This is at Schiller Park, the Umbrella Girl. I was just there on a dreary, foggy day. This is just something I do for the love of the game. I don't really sell my photography or anything. I just, when I get a chance, I go out and take photos. There's a big mouse arrow in the middle. I just really like foggy days too. That's a very dynamic kind of thing. There's these 3 ducks that are always there at Goodale Park. Just geometric, my intro to photography kind of thing. Just shape and form. It was a chair covered in snow, and the square. It was a square slotted chair, but then the snow was kind of melting in a certain way. Foggy. There's the ducks, the 3 male ducks that hang out at Goodale Park. There's a ginkgo tree that the day after it being in full bloom. The enamel teacher, Miss Sharon, is taking a mushroom class, so now I'm always on the lookout for any interesting mushrooms to take photographs of, to ask her, what kind of mushroom is this? Is this edible? And this was the inside of a lamp, the lampshade. And it was just, so it was reflecting the light coming through these things from the other side and making this really cool pattern. It's very fractal. It reminded me of a fractal when I saw it, and I was like, gotta take a picture of that. Here's my living room with all of my glass art being cast from the outside. It's the shadow on my wall. There's another Schiller Park.
What do your children say as they gaze at these?
They say, "Oh, that's pretty," and then no big deal. I've seen it before.
Oh.
So
As you looked at your mother's quilts.
Yeah. Yeah, they're hard to impress, you know.
You have twins, huh?
Yes, I have 2 7-year-old girls and a 10-year-old girl, so 3 girls.
Uh-huh.
A big handful. Yes, early morning. I dropped them off at school, and then it was foggy, so I was like, maybe there'll be a cool photo opportunity. So then walked around in the wet grass and took photos of Schiller Park. I'm indecisive.
Amazing
so
what you do with photography.
Thank you.
It is so similar to a painting,
Yeah.
as we
Yeah,
reflected
this one,
earlier.
Yeah. The color, I was going for more of a impressionist colors. I don't know how to describe that. Just tweaking settings, you know, adding a little more warm temperature.
Jonathan, thank you for
Thank you.
calling us to such beauty,
Thank you for having me.
true art. Wasn't that wonderful? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So we're all set. We're all done.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Thank you guys for
thank you.
coming. I'm glad you sat through all that. I know I have a lot of stuff and a lot of different mediums, so thank you for sitting through it.